My name is Caroline Bettencourt, and I observed Miss Sydney York over at Jacksonville Middle School. Um, Jacksonville Middle School is located over near Sherwood. It was in downtown Jacksonville, but now it is over on the other side of 107. They actually relocated to the old Northwood building. They combined the student populations, and they're in the old Northwood building. I guess they decided that that building was more suitable or just in better shape. I'm not sure. Um, Miss Sydney York, teaches sixth grade English at the Jacksonville Middle School. That school has been, in the last couple of years, listed in academic distress. That means basically they just were in a very bad place academically. Their test scores were not where they should be. About 62% of the students are African American, and about 27% is white. The rest of the percentage would be Asian and other minorities like Native Americans, stuff like that. And enrollment is about 606 students. About 78% of those 606 students are considered low income. So that is a very huge number of those students are considered in the low income category, coming from low income homes. And all those statistics were from the 2013-2014 school year. My first category is seating arrangements, and my glow is that Miss York got to know her students really well on a personal level. Got to know their personalities and who they like to talk to and where they would be quiet and listen. So I really admired the fact that she really got to know her students and then decided where to seat them from there. She pointed out about 3 girls that came in one of the periods, and they all, sat next to each other on a table. And she pointed out to me, she said, it doesn't make sense, but I seated those girls that way because that's how they work the best. You would think that 3 girls would just talk the entire time, but she had gotten to know those 3 girls and had gotten to see them in class and how they worked in class. And she decided that they worked best when they were all seated next to each other. So I really liked that about her. My grow is more of a personal preference. I don't like tables just because, these are 6th graders we're talking about, so they'll throw their papers everywhere on the table and they'll get mixed up with other students, and I just really, that kind of bothers me just because I'm a very organized person. I like there to be order. So I like desks. So in my classroom, I would definitely prefer to have desks for the students. But again, that's just personal preference. It's not a big deal. My second category is classroom management. My glow for Miss York would be that she did good behavior stamps. And that's just basically if the class as a whole behaved well on a certain day, at the end of that day, she would give out a stamp to each student. And it's a simple way to teach working towards a goal because these, they didn't just get to, get one stamp and then get a reward for it. They had to earn 25 stamps, and then they would get to choose a privilege. Some of the privileges were sitting at her desk or sitting wherever in the classroom, wherever they wanted. They could sit up in her teaching chair, which was just a tall chair at the front of the classroom. They could go to CBI on a Friday. They could go to the CBI classroom and basically spend the period with the CBI kids, getting to know them, which I really liked because CBI kids can definitely feel left out a lot of times and they just want a normal friend, and these kids going in there and just befriending them and doing activities with them really gave them that opportunity. And the children really enjoyed it. They liked going in there with the CBI students and working with them, so I thought that was really cool. My grow for classroom management would be that Miss York had very specific instructions for the students, which honestly you need in that kind of school, in Jacksonville Middle School, in a environment that's that kind of rough, you could say. You need strict rules and you need a definite way to run your classroom. But at the same time, these are sixth graders. So in my classroom, I would be a little bit more forgiving, you could say, understanding that these are sixth graders and they are gonna, they're gonna doodle every now and then, which is fine. I doodle personally, and that's how I listen best. So I would just try to understand that just because a child's not looking straight at me doesn't mean that they are not paying attention to me. But I definitely understand the need for strict rules and strict getting on to someone when they're not paying attention immediately. But I would just be a little bit more forgiving, maybe. My third category is classroom learning. My glow would be that there was 1 week where they were focusing on editing and revising, and they had to write a narrative, is what it was called. It was a few pages long, not very long. But they had to write their own narrative about the Holocaust. And Miss York took the time one weekend to sit down and write her own narrative on the exact topic that the students were. And she made purposeful mistakes in it. And I really admired that just because, she didn't have to sit down and write her own paper, her own narrative, but she chose to, just to show her students, just to really model to her students how to edit and revise. And basically, she made purposeful mistakes in her papers, mistakes that a sixth grader would make, and she blew it up on the smartboard and opened the class for discussion on how to fix the mistakes in the paper and how to just fix the grammar, fix the spelling, and just how to make it a better paper overall. I thought that was really good because, like I said, she didn't have to write her own paper, but she took the time to because she knew that as opposed to just lecturing about what editing and revising is, she chose to show the students and model to the students how to edit and revise and give them practice before they start out on their own papers. And she also pointed out that it's easier for sixth graders to critique someone else's paper, like hers, and before their own, because their own, they don't think anything's wrong with it because they wrote it. But it was just a really cool way to exemplify, I guess, how to edit and revise, which I thought was a very effective way of teaching. I didn't really have a grow for classroom learning. I liked everything that she did. I thought she did it very well. So I didn't have a grow. I thought she had great techniques for classroom learning. My next is learning activities. And my glow would be that Miss York, it is an English classroom, and she made them read out loud. A lot of kids hate that. Students just don't like it. It can be embarrassing if they're not very confident in their reading abilities. But at the same time, reading out loud is going to be the only way to make your reading abilities better. And she would go around the room and not just call on the students who had their hands raised, but call on the students who kind of shied away and were like, please don't pick me about the reading because they didn't want to read out loud. But she understood that them reading out loud is the only way to make reading better and make it less nerve-wracking and help them know how to pronounce certain words or say certain sentences or put expression into their voice. So I really liked that she made them read out loud because reading is extremely important and all other education, in my opinion, is hinged on that. My grow for learning activities would be that I would just try to involve a little bit more hands-on activity in my classroom, but I understand why she didn't because it is an English classroom. English is hard to make hands-on just because it's English. It's a language. It's not math where you can sit and count blocks. It's something that is more of an idea. It's not physical. But I would try to figure out creative ways to make just a little more hands-on, just to keep the students' attention and make English just a little bit more fun for them. classroom climate is next. She was extremely creative, Miss York. She just very artsy. She could make her own posters. She had really good handwriting. She could draw pictures really well, freehanded. So I really liked how she just kind of had homemade things, homemade posters, things she had made herself around the classroom. It just made it a little bit more homey and comfortable for the students, I think. She also played soft music in the background, which I love that. I think having a little bit of background noise is a great thing, especially for the teacher herself. She's pointed out that, yes, this is for the students and it makes my classroom a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more focused, but it's also for me so that I don't go crazy. My grow would be, yes, I like desks, and yes, I like order, but I would have like a comfy corner, maybe for reading or to have as one of the privileges for students with 25 points or 25 stamps. I would just have a few bean bags and maybe some books over there. Maybe they could spend the period reading. I just like the idea of a little bit more relaxed part of the room for students who get their work done on time, where they can just kind of go and relax for a few minutes, because middle school can be stressful. It can. Students resisting learning. My grow is that Miss York, no matter how disrespectful a student would be towards her, whenever that student, was allowed to rejoin the class, Miss York never acted snobbily towards the student. She never held a grudge like, oh, you were rude to me a few minutes ago, so I'm just gonna be rude back to you. She just welcomed them right back into her class and continued on with the class. She didn't let it become a huge distraction, and she kept everybody focused. My only grow for students resisting learning is that Miss York would get frustrated and impatient, and she would raise her voice quite a bit. I think that's a personality thing. I'm not usually a voice raiser unless it's something that I'm very upset about. And I kind of think that, there is a time and a place to raise your voice, but in a school setting, it's not very often. You may have to every now and then, but not every day, not constantly. I believe that there are effective ways to get your point across without raising your voice, and I believe that students will respect you even more when you can control that. So that would be my only thing, is I would probably raise my voice a little bit less and use other means of getting my point across. My last one is teaching approach. She was constantly asking her students questions throughout the lessons, whether it be, did you understand this out of the passage, or do you understand how to edit and revise this, or do you know the difference between editing and revising? She was constantly asking questions, and I think that is a very effective way of teaching, because it just makes them know that they have to pay attention, or they might not know the answer later on to one of her questions. I think it keeps them on their toes and just makes them know to pay attention, or they'll be embarrassed when they don't know the answer to a question later. I don't have a grow for her teaching approach. I thought she did great. I think she is a great teacher, especially for how long she's been doing it. She's only been a teacher for a few years. I think she's 25, something like that. And I think that she is a great teacher, especially considering she's only 25 years old and only been doing this for a few years, especially in a school like Jacksonville. And I am grateful for the opportunity to go observe her classroom. And no, it's not the perfect school, but I am thankful that it wasn't the perfect school, because now I have seen how to handle, problem students, how to handle disrespect being thrown at you every day, and how to handle students who come from low socioeconomic backgrounds. It's a rough school, but I think that knowing how to handle all students, even those who may come from rougher backgrounds like Jacksonville Middle, I think that's important for a teacher to know, and not just know how to handle, perfect little angels. So that is my presentation, and I'm really thankful for the opportunity that I had to go observe Miss York's classroom.